the coming of the Mashiach, the true Messiah, and what will be the situation with regard to Christianity and Islam. So to understand this more deeply, I'm first going to bring you, very interestingly, as we started yesterday, that the Rambam Maimonides, one of the greatest brilliant minds ever produced from mankind, how does he describe the Messianic age? And in his magnum opus, Mishneh Torah, the first book of Mishneh Torah speaks about the fundamental principles of the Jewish faith. And there he also speaks about reward and punishment. It's interesting to see how he describes the situation at the beginning of his work. So in Hilchot Teshuvah, chapter 9, Halakha 2, he says like this: why did all Israel, their prophets and their wise men, look forward and desired the coming of the days of the Messianic King? And let me straight away explain the name Mashiach, which comes to the root to anoint, and means to anoint with oil, because oil brings warmth and brings light. And the Messianic period will bring warmth and light to all human beings. Warmth of the elevation of emotions, and light, enlightenment of the mind. That's my comment, but let's continue. He says, what was the reason that all Israel looked forward to this? Is in order that they should be tranquil and relaxed, and no longer have enslavement to wicked empires that don't allow the people of Israel to busy themselves with the Torah, which is the divine teaching which contains the mysteries of life, and the mitzvot, with the divine teaching how to behave, kohogan. They can't do it properly. And they should be able to have a certain amount of magoa, relaxation, from this aspect of life, and they should be able to increase wisdom. As a result of the highest wisdom, they will merit to the life of the world to come. And I explain right away that Rambam himself, what's the world to come? It's not because it'll only be in the future. It's a reference to being able to live in the spiritual world. And this is also expressed every time a Jew is called up to the Torah to read or listen to the reading of one of the portions. He makes a blessing. By giving us the Torah, you have implanted eternal life into us. So we have a vision, to some extent, of the concept of a type of life which is above time and space, spiritual life. Anyway, to continue the words of the Rambam, in those days there will be increase in knowledge and wisdom and truth. As it says in Isaiah, that at that time the whole earth will feel the knowledge of Hashem, of the ineffable name of God, which means love, the love that He gives by keep on giving to all of us, and giving to the world. And it also says, this is in Jeremiah, chapter 31, verse 33, it says there's going to come a time when I will put my Torah into the inward parts of the people and write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people, and they'll teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know Hashem. You should know, build up an inner knowledge of your life together, one who gives it. For they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them. And says Hashem, for I will forgive their iniquity, and I will no longer remember their sin. So that is the great level which we can reach in the time of Mashiach. And then it says in another verse, in Ezekiel chapter 36, it says, I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and instead put in its place a heart of flesh instead of stone. And that's the great parable brought by Yechezkel of a heart transplant for the people of Israel when the heart becomes closed and there's blocks in the heart. So we have to make a heart transplant to put in a healthy heart, which allows the pulse of the bloodstream to run through the body. Similarly also, the Jewish people, unfortunately, many of us, we have a stony heart. And as it's described by the prophets, on that stony heart are written the 10 Commandments. That's the concept of piercing the stony heart and transforming it to a healthy heart that is alive and brings spiritual energy. So then the Rambam continues the Rambam. In the time of what's the Mashiach, he's going to arise from the seed of David, and he will have wisdom more than Shlomo Melech. Bal Chochma yirter mi Shlomo. V'navi gadol, and a great prophet, karov Moshe Rabbeinu. Near to Moshe, won't be as great as Moshe, but very near to him. And therefore he will teach the whole people and show them the true Derech Hashem, through Path Hashem. And all the nation will come to hear him. And it says, and this is a verse which is inscribed all over the world and also on the building of the United Nations, which you all know, it's in the 2nd chapter of Isaiah, in the end of days, and we're near that time now. There will be established the mountain of the house of Hashem, which Mount Ha Beit Hashem, that is the target for good or for evil of the whole world, of the Temple Mount, Ha Beit Hashem, but that will be Rosh Hashanah. That will be right on the top of all the mountains. It will be lifted up above all the hills, and then nations will come, and they come with a message that there'll be no more war. And that which is the aim of the United Nations, and which will become the aim of all mankind. But so he says, this is a reference to Chai Olam Haba. Nothing. When you want to Mashiach, so he says, we should know the final world. He says the end reward for everything is the ultimate lifestyle, which has no form of interruption and no form of any fault in it. That's Chai Olam Haba, which is a purely spiritual life, which is a different level. But Yemot HaMashiach, the day of Mashiach, is in many ways Olam Hazeh, similar to this world. Olam Ki Min HaHogden. And the world will continue as it is now. We should think when the Mashiach will come, it will be a complete transformation. The world won't war anymore. But above all, what does this mean? That kingship, independence will return to the people of Israel, and the sages already said, Ein ben olam hazeh limot haMashiach ele shibur malchut bilvad. There's no difference between the type of life that exists now to the days of Mashiach, except there'll be no more troubles and persecutions from the other nations, but on the contrary, they want to learn from us. Now, this is a little bit different to what the Rambam says at the end of his book. So that which you have in front of you is that it's actually the last chapters of his great Sefer. But before coming to that, I also want to quote you something else, which has to do with a responsa. That means a question which was put to the Rambam concerning the situation of teaching Torah to Christians and to Muslims in his time, which is connected with this. Which way is it connected? Because as we saw yesterday, he describes in his description of when will it come about that the nations will learn from the Mashiach, Ben David, to follow the Torah. He says that will come about in the end of days, on this globe. It's not a different planet, such as is Olam Haba. Olam Haba is a different planet. Today we know of its existence from the millions of records of near-death experiences, which have been experienced by some of the greatest scientists, greatest experts on the physiology or neurology of the brain, and they all agree with this. They've had experiences of going into a different life, which is not a material life, it's a spiritual life. But they're still lying in a coma, they still exist. And then they've experienced that life and come back, and they can tell us that the life there is a reality. That's a glimpse of Olam Haba. But Mashiach is not someone identified with an experience a person has when he's dead, physically. The experience which the world will have on this globe, where human beings exist embodied, and nevertheless they're able to reach a higher level, call it of spiritual evolution. So this responsa is very revealing. There is a statement made in the Talmud that a non-Jew who busy themselves with the Torah is in Chayv Mita. Chayv Mita does not mean that you can kill him, on no account, just means from heaven. So somebody asked him the question, does this mean that a Jew is not allowed to teach Torah to a non-Jew, except the 7 mitzvot? The 7 mitzvot, of course, a person can teach to a non-Jew. What about the rest of the Torah? So this is the answer of the Rambam. He says this is in truth the halakha. And Chayv Mita does not mean that there's a permission to kill a non-Jew if he learns Torah. Of course, for the Sheva Mitzvot, he has to know them, and therefore it's good to teach them to a non-Jew. But any other parts of the Torah, the Rambam says, Mutter lelamed a mitzvot lenotzrim, which is permissible to teach the mitzvot, all the mitzvot, to Christians, and even give them the meaning, the interpretation, the fiadin. But it says not permitted to do it to Muslims. Which way surely it's very surprising, because Christians, in his time, there wasn't a Unitarian church. In his time, all Christians believed in the Trinity. There are Christian groups today who don't really believe in the Trinity. They say they're called Unitarian Church. They believe really 3 different aspects of divinity. But in his time there was no such Christian sect. And the Muslims always believed in one spiritual God. No Trinity. They were opposed to Trinity. So he says you shouldn't teach the Torah to Muslims. It's very interesting, this answer, because the Rambam, let's say in his Mora Nevuchim, Guide for the Perplexed, he revealed enormous understanding of the Muslim philosophers of his time. And he knew also the intellectuals amongst the Muslims were on a very high philosophical level, and he quotes them and uses them in his descriptions of free will and other matters. Anyway, nevertheless, you shouldn't teach it to Islam. Why? Because you already know that the Muslims, they believe the Torah is not from heaven. In other words, the majority of Muslims at the time are similar, unfortunately, to the majority of Muslims today. In fact, he had to run away from them also. He's not here referring to the highest intellectuals. He's speaking ordinary Muslims. Don't teach them because they become confused. So, because he says, don't teach them because they don't believe the divinity of the Torah. If you will teach them something of the words of the Torah, or they'll find anything in the Torah which contradicts their traditions, their different oral traditions, which then transformed into texts of Muslims, who don't go by the Quran directly, but they go by distortions of the Quran, all sorts of legends. As you know that every time, let's speak practically, the guide tours on the Temple Mount today, that's organized by the WAC, so they give, I've read the report, they all speak about the greatness of Jerusalem. Jerusalem not mentioned in the Quran at all, but they've distorted it. And they say, it does say in the Quran that Muhammad had a vision, and he was asked to go and spread his teachings to the most distant mosque, which they interpret, which when he was not in Mecca. Yeah. So really, let's say the official classical description is the most distant mosque was then in Mecca, and that should become the holy place. And then he was transported by a winged horse to that distant mosque, and then from there he went up to heaven. Now that's mentioned in the Quran, but it doesn't say where the mosque is. So the tradition, the real tradition is reference to Mecca. And that's how the tradition arose, that you know that any Muslim who goes to Mecca is considered the greatest level, is given a special title, Hayat or something. And they come back with the title. That's why when they have the date, when they go, and they're allowed to go there, they're huge crowds. And that's what happened, I think, the recent crowd that came to Mecca, there was such a huge crowd, a lot of people were killed. Mm. Anyway, that's what it is. But the guide on the Temple Mount says no. He came to the Temple Mount, and the most distant mosque in Muhammad's time was in Jerusalem. There was no mosque there. But when Muhammad lived, and even after his death, there was no mosque there. That came sometime afterwards. They built the mosque. The Sultan, 400 years ago, he put it up. But that was, I think, a generation or two after Muhammad had died. But that's the story they say. It went up from this place, and this is the Golden Mosque. They went up to heaven. So the Rambam, he knew all this approach in his time. So he says if you teach the Muslims something from the Torah, which contradicts their traditions, he says because they have mixed many things up with also, he calls them Ma'asim or Devarim Zarim B'inyanim, strange, fanciful stories. This become part of the Muslim tradition. And they weren't regarded as a proof for the truth, because their words are just twisted. And they'll explain, they'll explain it according to their false presumptions. And as a result, they'll use it as a means to attack us. And that is happening more today than in his time. And what's the source of all these different religions amongst the Muslims? They fight one another. What's the truth? And you see it's all false. So the present Mufti says that what do you mean? The Temple Mount, I don't say a mosque on it, but it was a place of worship for Islam from the moment of creation. And if they read some people, he really believes it. I mean, if they deny the Holocaust, it's one of the, they would should have, there's so much evidence for it. So it twists history. And of course, many of them say, and also the present Mufti say, there was never a temple for the Jews on the Temple Mount. And of course, you know what if they find anything Jewish, what do they do with it? You know what they do with it? What do they do with Jewish remnants which they find on the Temple Mount?
They put it in the trash heap.
Put it in the trash heap. And we have archaeologists, they've been through the trash heaps and they found all sorts of fantastic things. You know, amongst other things, you know what they found? they found one of the bells, the bells of, as they described, of the Berachot of the Kohen Gadol. They found also a silver plaque which had on it the blessing of the priests. The fantastic things they found. They worked through the trash heaps. So he says here, he said, there'll be enemies, but that's why they hate anyone who lives in their midst. Any Jew who lives in their midst, they hate. And if you start talking to them, it'll become a stumbling block for the people of Israel who can't live amongst them, they're forbidden to live amongst them. That's as far as the Ishmaelim who even have a Brit Milah. But the Arelim means those who have not a Brit Milah, they do agree in the truth of the Torah. And they agree that the Tanakh we have is a correct Bible. They don't change the Old Testament. Only, what do? They interpret Yigalu Panim. They have false interpretations. And they say this hints at their chosen Messiah, which they know about. And if a person sincerely wants to study it amongst the Christians, and he is willing to listen, and you can prove to him grammatically that he's wrong, they'll change their minds, as actually happened in this time, and it happened throughout the ages, that the greater intellects in the Christian world, who went to study the Old Testament by Jews, they accepted its truth. This produced the Renaissance after his time. The Renaissance of Christian scholars who were willing to study the Old Testament from an intellectual point of view. And Reuchlin, for example, he studied the Tanakh, and he wanted to get the best teacher. His teacher was Rav Sophono, who was one of the classical commentators on the Tanakh. And the Radak they studied, and they recognized the Radak deals directly with the false interpretations given by the Christians. And they had discussions, and they recognized his truth. That's why it's possible, Ferdinand Isabella, in a time when there were a lot of Christian scholars, even Christian scholars who had become apostates, and they went from a Jewish source, they decided to become priests. A famous debate, public debate. The famous Vikuach. They were winning, even the time of the Inquisition. They said, okay, let's have it out. So, Rabbi Pablo, it's been recorded by the Christians as well. Who won the debate? Ramban. So Ferdinand said, well, if you stay here, either to kill you or to banish you in any case, you can't stay here. So that's why I got the Ramban synagogue. Because the Ramban, he had to escape. Because the people in Christians wouldn't allow it. If they say, oh, you've got to become either conversos, or we'll have to, so some of them, they would burn them up.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Now, I want to finish this response because it's so enlightening. He says, so the Christians, they find contradictions, but if somebody, you go and convince somebody, there's no vadya, and then you won't find any. There's no stumbling block if they, even if they don't change their religion, but they recognize this is a possible interpretation, and they won't find anything really in their Torah that contradicts this. And some of them became Gerim, whom we knew personally. Some became proselytes. In certain countries where they weren't persecuted too much, and probably persecuted too much, some became secret Jews, but everything is secret. And that was explains to us how it's one of the greatest scholars of the Tanakh who had to go all through these challenges was Abarbanel. Abarbanel was such a genius that further in his spell they even took him as their finance minister. But he was a genius in Torah, but he also had to run away. He had to run away with everybody else. And then he lost all his possessions. He said something very interesting when he starts one of his commentaries. It says frequently in the Gemara, when the Gemara wants to change a text of a Berachot or Mishnah, it says, Chisura mechsara vo kitoni. If you read the text of the Mishnah or the Berachot, then which were all oral traditions. So then the Gemara says, the text as it stands has something missing, and this is how we should learn it. In other words, in the memory of the people was the Mishnah and the Berachot, but the Gemara concludes from many proofs that in the course of the transmission from one generation to the next, there's a few words missing in the text of the Mishnah or in the text of the Berachot. You'll come across this phrase. So he said, Chisora mechsara vo kitoni. You translate this into Hebrew, it means there's a lot missing, and this is how you can learn. So he said, all the years I was so busy, he was like the head of the Jewish community and the finance minister and so on, and he was a wealthy man. Now I've got nothing. In fact, I'm alone here. His family was also dispersed. I managed to escape to Italy, first Portugal, Italy. He writes this in Italy. And here I've got nothing at all. So now I've got the chance to learn something. I'm not surrounded with business nor with administrative distractions. So I'm very pleased I'm able to learn. So he produced great works for us. Fantastic commentary on the Tanakh, on the whole mission, books of the Tanakh, especially concerning the redemption, the prophecy of the redemption. His great works are great. So this is, I think, a very enlightening response of the Rambam. Now, any questions, please?
Yes. I've been in debates on the internet against Christians and Muslims.
Yes.
And I came across this person who's a Christian preacher.
Yeah.
Somehow he got to learn in yeshiva for many years.
Yeah.
And he came now, he has thousands of followers.
Yeah.
Thousands. It's really disturbing how he transformed Judaism to fit their beliefs, to their Messiah.
Yeah.
So the Rambam says it's okay to teach the Christians Torah, but in our times, I just came across this person who has thousands of followers, and he's distorting Judaism in such a way it's like very disturbing.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I really understand.
He says in his time he found the Muslims in this respect to be worse than the Jews, worse than the Christians. But you're quite right. It doesn't mean it's in his time. With his contacts, he found that's what he found. But look, if you look at it on a global level, the attempts of Jewish apostates, and there are even some Jews like that, who make today also, they try to make Jews for Jesus. It's Jews for Jesus, but also a strong movement, filled with distortions. And Christians who also try to influence not only the Christian world but the Jewish world to turn to Christianity have unfortunately always existed, and today are also strong. And here in Israel, unfortunately, missionary work is done both by Jews who don't know Judaism, to turn to Christianity, and it's a big battle. And it's certainly based on people who have not really studied it thoroughly, both the Jews and the Christians. They have a lot of followers. The followers of the J for J, and also the Christians, who some of them have been quite right, have been yeshivas and so on, and ways, and they have followings. I mean, it's not as bad as it was, both in England as well as, I don't know everywhere. I know in England what the situation is, because one of our students is one of the major anti-missionary workers in England. She's the head of the whole movement, and he's doing good work, but it's not simple. And here as well in Israel, I've been involved with many situations. I'll give you an example even of one. There was a certain, she actually was a Christian lady whose father was a Christian missionary, and she herself came to Israel and learned all about Judaism, and she managed to pass through high-level Beit Din, who didn't ask her sufficiently about her beliefs, and and then she had a whole group where she was teaching Christianity primarily to Jews, like a J for J group. I was quite influential, and I was quite closely involved because it affected also some students who came here. And so together with another Rosh Yeshiva, we interviewed her. And we got evidence from her that she made out that she's Jewish, and that she got the Geiros. We got the best to nullify the Geiros because she wasn't interviewed sufficiently. I tell you, I was at a rabbinic conference at the Rabbanim of Israel some years ago, and I spoke that all the Rabbanim who are involved with Geirem have to make sure that the people who accept as Geirem don't believe in Christianity. So that one of the Rebbitzins, or one of the chief rabbis, the chief rabbi told me this year, chief rabbi, so one of the chief rabbis said, yes, he had such an instance. The flummest girl that his wife taught to become a Jewess and get Gabrus at the best in, she thought she was very frum. She knew all the Danish, she learned Hebrew, and she knew everything inside out. So once once the Rebbetzin asked her, when you say a blessing, blessed are you, Lord my God, who do you really mean when you say the Lord? She said, well, I mean Jesus Christ. Yeah. So of course she stopped it. And I said, please, all the Dayanim, you don't take anything for granted. You've got to have someone there who knows the language of the person's applying, and find out what is introducing to the Jewish people in Israel. And I'm sure there are thousands, unfortunately, of Christian missionaries who have managed to get Geiros from Patidin, unfortunately. And the people who suffer most from this are the true Geiros. But you've got to...
So the answer is no.
Okay, so I'll tell you, I don't...
So the answer is no, you can't...
Can we leave other questions for later? Because I don't want to... I want to go to the text, which is more important, of the 9th chapter of Hilchot Melachim, which you've got in front of you. And it also uncovers it, maybe answer your questions already. I could give you episodes without end of the situation today, and certainly we have to be on our guard how to work things out in the right manner. And I tell you that underground, many of them, there are missionaries working very hard on all weak Jewish personalities to turn to Christianity. A big threat in the army also. So, if you will now turn to the uncensored version of the Rambam. In the 9th chapter, I understand there's more Rambams here. It's good you should all have a copy. Because I've got here someone who worked hard. He brought all the sources for the Rambam from Gemara and Midrashim. For the Rambam, everything was sourced. So he said like this, the 11th chapter of Hilchot Melachim, the laws concerning kings and warfare, which also includes the laws of Bnei Noach. So we'll go from Halacha Dalet, which I don't do with you, I'll read in Hebrew as well, it's important. Im Yamod Melech Mipei David. This we do, if the king arises from the house of David, and he meditates in the Torah, v'osek b'Torah, v'mitzvot b'David Aviv, k'vi Torah sheb'tav sheba'al peh. So he follows the written oral tradition. Yaakov kol Yisrael lepani, he persuades all Am Yisrael to follow it, v'lechazik b'idka, v'ilachem milchamot Hashem, then it's b'chezkat through Mashiach. If he is successful, and he is victorious over the nations around and builds the Beit HaMikdash in its place, and gathers the scattered ones of Israel, he's certainly the Mashiach. And then we'll skip the aspect of Rabbi Akiva, but he said, so it says, if he's Vimlo Imitzliach, if he was not successful, or he was killed, then we know it's not the Mashiach. So why was the Mashiach sent? As a test. And it says in Daniel, there will be the intelligent ones who will stumble with a false hope, and this is to purify the situation till the truth comes in the end. I think we will apply this statement to Lubavitch. It also was a test which unfortunately brought many of them to believe he's the Mashiach. And Lubavitch Rebbe tried to stop it, but he was, I think he had such an influence on people reared in the Christian tradition, they found it difficult to break away from some belief. If I can't have the image of the Lord, of Christianity in front of me, but I need an image. So, who's the image? The Rebbe brought me to Hashem. And many of them, they felt also Christianity is not really satisfying me so much. But they still only find satisfaction in making a link with someone they can see. And they weren't able to raise them up to level that what he was even saying, says the Mashiach is coming, because you're the Mashiach. And that explained also why, unfortunately, the most extreme ones amongst them, it's not Mashiachism, it was. Anyway, then go back to the words of the Rambam. Af Yeshu Anotzvi. So he said, Jesus, Shedam Mashiach, he thought he was the Mashiach, and he was killed in the Besdin. Kvanitnabe po Daniel, Shenema, Daniel, Onei Faritza Amcha, Hinasu. Those who break away from your people, they'll be lifted up. Muhammad Chazon to set up a vision of the utopian redemption, v'nichshalu, and they failed. Is there any greater stumbling block than this? That all the prophets speak of the Mashiach who redeems the people of Israel and saves them. and to go and mislead most of the world, Lavod Eloach Mibalad Hashem, to go and serve a God who is not Hashem. So that's what's happened. I still remember in schools with non-Jews, I used to say, well, what do you mean? Just look at what the Mashiach is supposed to achieve. It hasn't achieved anything. Wars and crime and evil continues. It's supposed to, when the true Mashiach, from all the prophets, is supposed to remove all this. How can you believe in him? Even all these things, the thoughts which the Creator of the world has, no person can fathom them. His ways are different to our ways, his thoughts are different. In other words, we often think evil things that happen are evil, will only lead to evil. No, they can even lead to good. All these matters concerning Jesus the Christian, and this Muslim who came after him, is only in order to straighten the path which will lead to the true Mashiach, and to prepare the whole world to go and worship Hashem together. Shenema, because it says, I'm going to create a revolution to all the nations, that they will have a different language. Shem Hashem, all of them call upon the name of Hashem. They'll serve him Shchem Echad, as with one shoulder. Keitzad, Vanid Alev, Ha'olam Kulo, Mitivra Mashiach. The whole world is filled with the words of Mashiach, Mitivra Torah, the words of the Torah, Umitivra HaMitzvot, and the words of the Mitzvot. Upashtu Devarim Eilu. These matters have become spread. In the islands that are far removed from here, the Christian missionaries have taken the Bible in every part of the world, and it keeps increasing. It's certainly the best-selling book in the world, millions and millions of copies in all languages, Uvamim Rabim Alelev, and amongst so many nations who are Alelev, who's uncircumcised of heart, not only physically. And I think this phrase here, you take together what he says in his responsa, because the truth is that the Muslims, and they don't permit the Old Testament, quite different to the Christians. The Christians say, yeah, Old Testament, of course, and we'll interpret it, but the Muslims don't allow it. And that was the Jew I told you about yesterday. So he was told in his school, and if he opened the Old Testament, he was given a beating. Why? Not allowed to have it. But in secret he read it. The one who was really Jewish, I told you yesterday. But that's for Alelev. But the truth is, they go and discuss what's written in the Torah, or mitzvot Torah, and also the commandments. Some of them say that these mitzvot are really true for their time. But today they're no longer applicable. That's Pauline Christianity. When Paul saw, all the stories about Jesus in the New Testament, they're not from his time. And you know where you do have stories about Jesus from his own time? Where? In the uncensored parts of the Talmud. That was even some of the Christians who knew the Gemara said, don't burn the Gemara. The Gemara contains testimony about Jesus. which you don't find in the Gospels. The Gospels are all written by people who never knew Jesus. They wrote it down, although they record. So it's a contradiction. You find there's a very good book on this subject called The Disputation, which I had a hand in producing it years ago. I knew the person who worked on it. So the disputation, what does he do? He brings, the basis is also bring the actual disputation between the Ramban and Fra Pablo, which there's plenty of records about. But he uses that as a basis for making a present-day disputation with Christian claims and demonstrates the falsity. But so some say, okay, he came. So when Paul saw, Shaul is called it, when he saw there's no point speaking to the Jews, he didn't make so much progress, so therefore he said, let's not carry on with all the laws, because the early Christians, that's what the J for J tried to return. The J for J say, we want to keep the mitzvah. Most of the missionaries today, if they are successful amongst Jews, they say, yeah, we keep the mitzvah. Like according to them, Jesus did. Also kept all the mitzvah. So I haven't come to take away anything, he said, according to most early reports. I've only come to add to it. I haven't come to take anything away. So he also kept the mitzvah. Just believed he was the Mashiach. That's what it says, well, the Mashiach. And he was revived from the dead, and right there again. That's some of it. But it wasn't so successful. He said we've got to make it world religion. So therefore, Paul did something good in a way. He said, right, we have to keep, in fact, there's a sponsor of a Jacob Emden, it's an important sponsor. It's a tool with Moses Mendelssohn. You've heard of Moses Mendelssohn? Yeah. He was a great philosopher who kept the Torah and wrote philosophical works. He was very friendly with one of the greatest minds in German Jewry called Lessing, a dramatist. In fact, Lessing wrote a famous drama called Nathan der Weise, about a wise Jew. And that wise Jew was a description of Moses Mendelssohn, very much respected by the elites in the Christian world, the great philosopher. So he asked Yovam Endem, what is the attitude of the Torah towards like Moses Unitarian Church? So then that response, Jacob Endem, son of Chacham Tzvi, one of the greatest poskim, so he, a fantastic tshuva. So he said, really, what Paul did has a certain basis. The Gentiles should know about God and the Noachide code. And if you really, but he was against, he said, non-Jews don't need to keep the mitzvah. It's true, they don't need it. So that's what he said, they've become nullified in this time. They don't apply for all generations. And of course, the Christians say, the same applies to the Jews as well. Some say the Old Testament, you can't take the mitzvahs literally. They're just allegories. Like they'll say, tefillin just means you've got to have a reminder. Remind yourself of the mitzvah. Yeah? That's it. But you don't have to actually do it. You can't, they ought to be taken allegorically. And the Messiah has come and revealed the philosophical concepts and moral ideas expressed in the mitzvah. Don't actually have to do it. They say like this, Shlomo HaMelech says, tie the mitzvah, kosherim and luach libecha. Tie them to your heart, the mitzvah. Does that mean you've got to tie them on your arm, opposite your heart? So that's this. That's what Kshat Ma'atal, you should have signs. Make yourself a sign, don't forget Hashem, this Torah. But don't take it literally. So that's when the true Mashiach will come in truth. And you'll be successful. they will immediately understand and know. This Yirmiyahu says this. Their forefathers gave them a falsehood. Their prophets and their parents, ancestors led them astray. So this is the way to understand Christianity. And if you take the response of Islam also, because it's like this, he said the average Muslim will not look at the Old Testament, but the curious intellectual Muslim will also read a bit the Old Testament, especially when the Mashiach comes. Now this all has very much to do with what's happening today. If we translate this passage around what's happening today, it's fantastic how this making Yerushalayim is the center today of three religions. And I think that's also a way of Hashem. The Har HaBayit, with the Temple Mount, why do we have evangelical Christians who come here and they support the West Bank should be occupied only by Jews? They only want Jews, not Muslims. Because it's more difficult for Christians, missionaries, to work with the Muslims. Why is it more difficult? Because most of the Muslims don't allow them. You see, you can work from the Old Testament, forget about it. New Testament, of course, forget about it. New Testament is built on the Old and the New, but you still got to look at the Old. And they are not allowed to look at the Old. Therefore, they're not very successful to get Muslims to become Christians. And in fact, today it's the other way around. You know, because the Muslims, with all their lies and all their murderous disregard of the Noahide Code, so Christians won't accept that too easily. So therefore, the fundamental extremists amongst the Muslims, well, they're very much against Christians as well. The Yichad's against the Christian world, even more so in some ways, some of them. So it's but when people recognize, they all want to have the Christians also will prefer to have the temple to be built by their Mashiach rather than the mosque. Well, the mosque is supposed to be prepared for Muhammad to rise again, or his successor, the different version ones. So it's all part, like the Rambam says, we shouldn't think all these movements that take place today, they also demonstrate to anyone who's got a conscience that the distortions, this is really what is bringing about fundamentalism. And we've got to make a strong movement. If we Jews would only speak in the language of the Torah, I think it can bring not only, it's not even got to be a miraculous change. If we say, if we do teshuvah, the world will do teshuvah. It's almost, we're there almost. If we as Jews would just present Torah and present it to the whole world, and the duty and the kind of concept, I'm going to the sources, I believe that, because it would take us too far away from the actual Gemara. But if we would only be able to present the Noahide code to the nations of the world, and our code on this high moral level, and we would say this is our teacher, and we would keep strong in that respect and get a majority. So there should also be the image of Israel, it shouldn't be the ugly Israeli. But you know, we should all do acts of Kiddush Hashem. It has enormous impact. We were to show people the high level of chesed which the Torah demands from us. Then, but to go through it consistently. Today we do have work groups like that. I mean, there's no question that the enormous chesed organizations that's going to make distinction Jew and non-Jew. All the hospitals we've got both Palestinian criminals in our hospitals treated sometimes by the Jewish doctors. We've got many Muslim doctors and nurses, and we give them complete freedom, and we try to help them all. I mean, we have to combine this with also that the leaders of the state should give an image of the greatness of the Tanakh, the greatness of the Bible, and the teaching of the Bible. And whenever that's been used, it has a great effect. we study the history of the relationship between the nations of the world and the burgeoning home for the Jewish people in the Palestine, as expressed in the Balfour Declaration, and the supporters of it, and those who opposed it, and then Truman's support of the State of Israel, when he the first one who gave his support, on what basis he gave his support. If we would only follow through that from the leaders of the people also, it could change the whole picture. Including also keeping to the law of the Harabait, because that's the symbol. It's become the symbol. So let us respect the Kedusha of the Harabait. And maybe Hashem put the mosque there especially because he wants to avoid the Jews desecrating it. So let's hope that will happen. And then the mountain of Hashem will be recognized by all the nations.
Won't be entering the Arabs'